And welcome back to our OSI Spring Game Preview Special. We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. We've already broken down the offense and what to expect out of the spring game. Sam, we're going to look at defense now.
Yeah, and looking along that defensive line, the three guys up front for Eric Chenander's new defense. Who do you think those three guys will be that will lead the Husker attack up front?
Well, it's a good unit. Overall, the defensive line is a strong unit. It wouldn't stun me if the same three guys who started last year, Freedom Akamoladun, Carlos Davis, and Mick Stoltenberg, were the three starters again, but that's immaterial. I think they could actually play 7 to 8 guys on the defensive line. Now that Ben Stilley has moved in there, DeAndre Thomas, Damian Daniels, Peyton Newell, all those guys can play. This is one of the 4 or 5 best defensive lines in the Big Ten. And that is probably something they didn't expect coming in here. For as bad as Nebraska's run defense was last year, and it stunk, this is a much better defensive line than that. And so I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised, and they already have been, at how capable this group is. And it's an aggressive defense that Eric Chenander wants to run. As a result, these guys are going upfield as opposed to trying to hold their ground as undersized linemen.
Now, moving back to the linebackers, Coach Root and Coach DeWitt inheriting some real talent back there as far as the linebackers. What do you think is their biggest strength they bring to the table, and where do you think Coach Root and Coach DeWitt want those backers to get better?
Inside linebackers, I think we kind of know who the 4 are. Will Honus, Dedrick Young, Muhammad Berry, Avery Roberts. They're going to probably roll with those 4. I think Honus is probably the junior college transfer, is probably going to end up being the guy that we watch the most. But Young, he's started for a couple of years. Berry's, active. And then Roberts, they've already said if he loses weight, he's going to be pretty special. Outside linebacker is a muddle. They've got so many guys there, a lot of them young. And with the exception of Luke Gifford, who's not practicing this spring because he's hurt, all of them unproven. I mean, they just haven't gotten it done. So there could be any number of guys that emerge there, and I'd like to actually see it in the spring game. I have a hunch that Alex Davis and Tyron Ferguson are going to have good spring games, but I'd like to see it before it happens.
Now, Sam, moving to the secondary, senior safety Aaron Williams, junior cornerback Lamar Jackson, some known names there in the defensive backfield. What other guys do you expect to factor into that defensive backfield?
Well, it's a thin bunch. There's not a lot back there. They're worried about it, and they should be. Lamar Jackson, DiCaprio Boodle, Eric Lee are your corners. Your safeties that are proven are Aaron Williams, Antonio Reed, who's got a lot of ability but has been hurt a lot, and Markel Dismuke. That's it. That's really it. Now, after that, they're developing depth. I don't know that they've got a lot of proven players after that bunch, and let's remember, that bunch wasn't great last year anyway. So they've got a lot of room to grow. Travis Fisher, the defensive backs coach, said Lamar Jackson has had a good camp. That doesn't surprise me that much. Lamar's got a lot of athletic ability. He might be the most athletically gifted player on the defense. Did not have a good season last year. Was in a defense that did not suit his talent, and he didn't play as well or as hard as he could have. But now that he's in a defense that I think suits his athleticism, you're going to see that turn on. I think safety, so long as those 2 guys stay healthy, which they have not, let's remember, they're solid.
From listening to defensive coordinator Eric Chenander, it seems like he just wants those defensive backs to be aggressive, as Coach Frost always says, the no fear of failure. I mean, how important is that, do you think, to instill in this defense, not only this spring, but this fall, that they're going to have to be aggressive and they got to be confident if they want this defense to succeed?
Well, the way they want to run this thing is they want their defense to take the ball away and to get the ball back to the offense and not to be afraid of making a mistake, because the offense will have their back if they give up a long touchdown. Well, that offense better be ready to do that. And we'll see. To expect Nebraska's offense to score 35 points a game out of the chute, I don't know that that'll happen. So we'll see how the defensive philosophy shifts once they actually get to the season. But I think for now, what they're trying to train these guys are on, if you got a chance to get a turnover, get it, make it. Nebraska has really struggled with takeaways, I think, in 3 of the last 5 years, and last year they stunk. And that defense that Bob Diaco was running should have created many more turnovers than it did. That's one of the few things it should have done, and it didn't. So there is so much that needs to get done there in terms of changing mentality, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that they've had to do so far is put the stingers, back in the scorpions, and a lot of these guys were de-stung last year. They got their stingers taken out, especially by Minnesota. So they have to put the stingers back in, and they have to actually get these kids to play like their recruiting ratings say they should, because they actually have talent on defense.
Now, for the first chance for the Black Shirts to show their stingers, the spring game this Saturday, this format, it seems like Coach Frost is pretty adamant about putting all the good guys at least on the same team maybe. I mean, what do you think of this spring game format?
Well, I think the defense is going to be pretty evenly matched, because there's enough depth on the defense that where the first and third teams and the second and fourth teams aren't going to be a whole lot different. There's not much separation except a corner between the first and the second team. There just isn't. So I think defensively it's going to be pretty evenly matched. On the offensive side, they're putting what they believe to be the top two quarterbacks on the red team, but they're putting Noah Vedral, who's probably the best of the four but can't play because of NCAA transfer rules, on the white. So I think it's going to be a pretty competitive game. I really do. In part because Vedral, I think, will even up the scales a little bit. I think the red team offensive line will be a little bit better than the white team offensive line, but I actually expect it to be reasonably competitive, just because the two defenses, I think, can be comparable, and the quarterbacks actually even out. You know, Vedral can't play probably next year because of the transfer rules, but he's probably better than the other guys. So I think it'll be competitive. I think fans will stick around until the end.
He's Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald. Read his work at omaha.com. We'll wrap up the OSI Spring Game Preview Special right after this.